Back when horsepower wasn't choked by emissions and insurance red tape, Ford was leading a war, not a race. A war. At the strip, on the street, on showroom floors, and the machines they built, they didn't just go fast, they rewrote the meaning of performance. The 1969 Mustang Boss 429 was Detroit's middle finger to NASCAR's homologation rulebook. Ford needed to race a new motor, so they built a car around it. That meant a 429 cubic inch semi-Hemi V8 that barely fit under the hood. Rated at 375 horsepower, but everyone knew the truth. It was pushing over 500 with a 4-speed 3.91 gears and sheer mechanical violence. The Boss 429 did the quarter in the low 13s, built to run wide open, and it did. Then came the 1970 Torino Cobra Super Cobra Jet. It looked like a dad's commuter car, but don't let it fool you. Under the hood, Ford's 429 SCJ, complete with drag pack goodies, thicker rods, bigger oil cooler, deep gears. Motor Trend clocked it at 13.99 seconds, but with better tires, it ran closer to 13.3. This thing wasn't flashy. It was surgical, clean, cold, brutal. The 1964 Fairlane Thunderbolt wasn't even street legal in spirit, just barely in paper. Ford built 100 of them to dominate NHRA Superstock. Stripped to the bone, no frills, no carpet, no back seat. Just a fiberglass hood and a monster 427 high-riser V8 with dual quads. Officially rated at 425 horsepower, but it was making well over 600. With slicks, quarter mile in the 10s. It didn't belong on the road, it belonged in a cage. The 1971 Mustang Boss 351 didn't rely on displacement, it relied on precision. A high-compression Cleveland V8 with 11.3 to 1 squeeze, 330 horsepower, solid lifters, and a 6,200 RPM redline. This wasn't brute strength, it was controlled fury. Lighter than its big block cousins, it could dip into the high 13s with the right driver. It didn't bark, it screamed. The 1989 Mustang LX 5.0 notchback was the sleeper of its era. Lighter than the GT, cleaner lines, and nothing but business. Ford gave it a 225 horsepower 5.0 liter V8, a 5-speed and the best power to weight ratio on the market. With gears, slicks, and a decent clutch foot, this car could see the 13s with minimal effort. It wasn't flashy, it was fast where it counted. The 2003 Mustang SVT Cobra, known as the Terminator, marked the return of serious muscle. Supercharged 4.6-liter V8, 390 horsepower stock, but the forged internals told the real story. A simple pulley swap and a tune brought it past 450 to the wheels. It was violent off the line and smooth through the gears. Low 12 stock, high 11s with minimal mods. It didn't ask for respect, it took it. Then there's the 2000 Mustang Cobra R. No rear seats, no radio, no AC, just a hand-built 5.4-liter DOHC V8, putting down 385 horsepower naturally aspirated. It revved high, breathed deep, and pulled like a freight train. 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds, quarter mile in the mid-20s. It was the most track-focused Mustang Ford had ever built, until the GT 350 came around years later. But the R started it all. The 1970 Falcon 429 Cobra Jet flew under the radar. You won't find it on posters, but for those who know, it's a gem. Mid-size body, 429 CJ under the hood, same drag pack equipment as the Torino, but the Falcon was lighter, less bloated, more raw. With 3.91 gears and a 4-speed, it quietly ran low 13s and left bigger names scratching their heads. It didn't need fame, it had firepower. The 2013 Shelby GT 500 was a different kind of monster. Supercharged 5.8-liter Trinity engine, 662 horsepower, top speed over 200 miles per hour. This wasn't just Ford's fastest muscle car, it was America's. Quarter mile in 11.6 seconds, stock, and with just a tire upgrade, deep into the 10s. It wasn't just fast for a Mustang, it was fast, period. And tucked deep in Ford's vault was the 1970 Fairlane Twister Special, built mostly for Kansas dealers. Fewer than 100 were ever made. They came with 429 Cobra Jet engines, special cooling, and high-ratio rear ends. On paper, they looked like basic intermediates, but in the right hands, they were street stalkers. Quiet paint, loud performance. A true one-year-only oddity that flew by before most even noticed it was there. The 1978 Ford Mustang II King Cobra doesn't usually show up in performance conversations, but it should. It was the final gasp of V8 power before the Mustang II died off. Only a few thousand were made, but with a 302 cubic inch V8, upgraded suspension, and lightweight shell, it was the last glimmer of muscle in a decade of smog. Quarter mile, around 15 seconds flat, but with mods, it was a budget street brawler in a shrinking world. Then there's the 1971 Torino GT 429 Super Cobra Jet. Think of it as the big brother of the Boss 429. Heavier, meaner, and purpose-built for punishment. Under the hood, it shared the same drag pack, oil cooler, and 4-bolt main block, but in a fastback Torino shell, it looked lethal. With a C6 auto and 4.11 rear end, testers ran it into the low 13s. It was never subtle, and that was the point. The 1966 Fairlane GT 390 was Ford's early swing at merging muscle with midsize. Stuffed with a 390 cubic inch FE V8, dual exhaust, and a 4-speed manual, it was good for 335 horsepower and a mid-14-second quarter mile. But it wasn't just about speed, it handled well, braked hard, and looked sharp. It laid the groundwork for Ford's later dominance in midsize performance. Now we talk about one of the rarest, the 1969 Talladega Torino. Built to meet NASCAR rules, just over 750 were made. It had a smoothed out front end, extended nose, and flush bumper for aerodynamics. But it wasn't just pretty, and it packed a 428 Cobra jet under the hood, capable of over 400 horsepower. On the strip, it could run low 13s. On the track, it won Ford the championship, quietly one of Ford's greatest hits. Jumping to modern day, the 2020 Shelby GT 500 shattered expectations. Powered by a 5.2-liter supercharged Predator V8, it made 760 horsepower and ran the quarter mile in 10.6 seconds right off the showroom floor. This wasn't a car, it was a missile. Dual clutch transmission, launch control, and a sound that shook buildings. The fact it wore a Ford badge only made it more savage. The 1967 Mustang GT 390 Fastback earned its place in pop culture thanks to Steve McQueen and Bullitt, but the numbers backed up the legend. That S-code 390 made 320 horsepower, but felt like more. 0 to 60 in under 7 seconds, quarter mile in the mid-14 seconds. Not the fastest on this list, but one of the most important. The car that made Mustang cool and proved Ford could back up the image with action. Next up, the 1993 Mustang SVT Cobra, the original Cobra, Ford's last Fox body hurrah. It had a 235 horsepower 5.0 GT40 heads, upgraded intake, and a tuned suspension. It didn't beat the Terminator in raw numbers, but it carved corners and ran 14 seconds all day long, and it looked like a proper send-off to the era that saved Ford's performance image. You can't forget the 1970 Mercury Cyclone spoiler 429 CJ. Yes, Mercury, but under the skin, it was all Ford muscle. With a 429 Cobra jet, heavy-duty cooling, and drag pack setup, this Cyclone was thunder in disguise. Only a few hundred were built and fewer survive, but anyone lucky enough to floor one knew. This was no luxury cruiser. This was a missile in a tuxedo. Back in 1969, Ford had a plan. Looked to stuff a big engine into something lightweight. The result? The 1969 Ford Cobra sports roof. Not a Mustang, not a Torino, just Cobra. Built on the Fairlane shell, it housed a 428 Cobra jet and could be optioned with the Ram air and drag pack. Low 13s were possible with traction. It was clean, fast, and brutally underrated. Ford built less than 15,000 total Cobras and only a fraction got the SCJ treatment. Rounding out the heat, the 2012 Mustang Boss 302 Laguna Seca. A tribute to the original Boss, this one was stripped for track work. Recaro seats, no back seat, and a 5.0-liter Coyote V8 tuned to 444 horsepower, screamed to 7,500 RPM, and ran the quarter mile in 12.3 seconds. But the real magic was how it felt. It didn't just go fast, it connected you to the road like nothing else Ford had built in years. These Fords weren't built for comfort, they were built to dominate. From track killers to street legends, they left rubber, noise, and memories behind. If you felt the rumble just listening, hit subscribe, drop a comment with your favorite Ford muscle car, and let us know which one you'd take for a quarter mile blast. This isn't just nostalgia, it's horsepower history, and we're just getting started.